So I was talking to you about nutrition in the first part of this video, and in this part I just want to address a little bit about why it is you need to change your diet and about the subject of periodization. Those who have followed my blogs in the past know that when I'm training for an event that I train using a style called periodization. Periodization means breaking down your goal into smaller goals, and you train and you eat differently during each of those stages. All athletes use periodization. Professional athletes use it, whether they're doing Tour de France or whether they are a football player. Football players use periodization. They have a peak on-season training and eating program, and they have an off-season training and eating program. The two look very different. You can't, when an athlete's pushing to peak, is not the time to introduce new, strenuous, intense activities that aren't sports specific to their goal. You wouldn't suddenly like throw in some CrossFit challenges or something like that to them because it would take some energy away from what their training bricks are. So also, you know, the diet changes. So let's look at training for a marathon, let's say. That is typically a 4-month to 5-month process of training to do the proper increase in mileage and the increased impact on your body. Well, also, your diet is going to change throughout each stage. In the first stage, you may be running 12 miles total a week, let's say. By the end of that marathon training, you're going to be running more than 12 miles a day. Maybe a couple times a week you're going to be running, 12 miles a day. So the caloric and carbohydrate requirements are going to be totally different in those two different times. I recently went through a muscle building phase, which I'm trying to tell my body it wants to get out of, but been kind of enjoying the higher carbohydrates and the higher calories, and it's not being so willing to give that phase up, and the idea of running endurance activities that my body's rebelling against. But we're trying to get back there anyway. So you start out, you're running, let's just say total of 12 miles a week. You have a couple midweek runs, and your midweek runs are maybe 2 miles, 3 miles, and a day of hills. Your caloric expenditure and your dietary needs on your 2-mile day and your 3-mile day are going to be about the same. On the day when you do hills, you're going to need a little bit more carbohydrates and a little bit more calories. On the day that you have your long run is the day that you need the most carbohydrates. It would make no sense to say, I'm an athlete, I'm an endurance athlete, I'm going to run a marathon, and to start eating in stage 1 the way that you're going to need to be eating in stage 5, your peak time. And it makes no sense on your day that you're running 2 miles to eat the same thing that you're going to need to eat on the day that you're doing in stage 1, your 5 or 6 mile, maybe even not that much in stage 1. Your long run's going to need more. But your 2-mile run does not need as much as your long run day does. Your body doesn't have as much to recover from. It doesn't have as much to fuel for. So fueling all week for something that's going to happen on Saturday is an overfill. And so you're like overfilling a gas tank, and it's like sloshing out all over the place. And that slosh out is being stored. And it gets stored in your thighs and your hips, and you're not going to be so happy with the results of that. So, yes, you do need more calories and you do need more carbs when you're training for an endurance event. But you don't need those every day, and you don't need those every stage along the way. So place them wisely so that you can have the best recovery, the best performance, and so that you're satisfied with how your body is also adapting to the changes. Extra weight on your hips and thighs is not going to make it easier to run those hills and stuff. So try to resist the whole idea of pasta loading. And I've been guilty of that at times, but once I took my exercise physiology class and my professor sat down and went over with me my training for a marathon and told me my peak windows for fueling and how to fuel and recover properly, ever since I started following that, I do a whole lot better. So, because I get long-winded and I also am forgetful, for those of you who are endurance athletes, who are training for your peak, and you do have a long run, once your long run is more than, let's say we're at the 5-mile mark. When your long run is 5 miles, you want to start fueling for that long run Thursday evening. This is assuming that your long run's on Saturday morning, okay? So let's assume your long run's on Saturday morning. On Thursday evening, you want to have something like some brown rice with your dinner, or some sweet potato with your dinner, higher fiber, starchier carb. Then for your breakfast on Friday morning, you want to have your oats, your grains, your starchier carbohydrates. And then, and also for lunch on Friday, again, your brown rice, your sweet potatoes. Friday night, you want to be careful about your fats, your grains, and your meats. Because, that would be a great time right there for your Friday night dinner. It would be a great time to maybe even go like a little vegetarian and have a really good salad, and lots of greens, lots of veggies, olive oil on it, because you don't want something that's too heavy on your stomach. You need the starchier carbohydrates to pack those mitochondria, to get your ATP, to get your glycogen up, whatever lingo you want to use there. You need your fuel tanks full, but we don't need our intestines full when we're running or cycling, although the two are a bit different. And I'm not a swimmer, so I can't speak to what that feels like to have a full stomach or to need to eliminate while you're doing laps in the pool. But then Saturday morning before your long run, don't just go out there on an empty stomach, because you're going to need to fuel before, during, and after your long run or your long ride or swim. And like I said, I can't speak directly to the swim, but I can speak to other events. What I would typically do is would make myself like a little pudding in the morning before my long run, because I don't want anything too heavy on my stomach and I don't want anything too fibrous, because I don't want my intestines to be overly full. So I make myself a little pudding with some unsweetened applesauce and put in some protein powder. And I would take oatmeal, just the old-fashioned rolled oats, and I'd put it in my coffee grinder or my food processor. I used a coffee grinder at the time because I did not have a food processor at the time. And I would turn it into oat flour. And I would mix it into the pudding. And that was my breakfast. Sometimes along with a banana. I would have a banana with it. And so that was breakfast. Then, as I started my race or my long run, I would have, as it started, as before the gunshot goes off, I would have, at this stage, what I do, I went all natural in my training for my marathon, so I didn't use any goos or anything like that. But if you do use goo, I guess that would be where you would use your goo. I use the Medjool dates, and I would have a couple dates and maybe a couple almonds, and be off on my run. 45 minutes into my run, I would refuel, and my refuel was a drink. If you're using a commercial product, it'd be something like Gatorade. And then refuel every 45 minutes. Don't wait until you're tired. Don't wait until you feel like you're out of fuel. Religiously. And don't make it like at mile 3 I do this and at mile 6 I do that, because it may throw you off. Just by your watch. Just 45 minutes in I do this. 45 minutes more I do that. 45 minutes more I do that. And so I would alternate. For every 45 minutes would be a fuel, and in between was make sure I had my water. When you're done, immediately when you're done, if you're at a race, they're going to hand you something. If you're not at a race, you need to have a recovery thing there for you. My favorite recovery shake, this is just my personal preference, my favorite recovery shake is chocolate protein powder, whey is what I use, banana, always with my banana, water, 1 cup of spinach, and a tablespoon of Hershey's Special Extra Dark Cocoa Powder. And that's my favorite recovery drink. In the absence of doing something like that, a chocolate milk and a banana would be just fine for that. So I hope this helps you out some. And again, we're at 12 minutes. I just like talking to you. Love you. Thanks for tuning in.